So we're conducting this interview in the time of COVID. And, in the midst of a pandemic, most youth workers aren't naturally thinking of outdoors ministry or missional work with youth because it's so hands-on, it's so in person. It's hard to envision what that might look like online, but you both have made that shift with some really creative packaging for your ministries. Can you both name what good has come from digital communications in outdoor work and missional work? The positives that you've seen in that, we tend to focus on the negatives, but I'd be curious to hear what good has come of this time for your work in ministry.
Yeah, I'd love to comment on that. I think that the digital tools that are available to us today allow us to do this work with youth in ways that are actually really powerful. And when we have a familiarity with what those tools are, it allows us to do youth ministry in creative, engaging ways that perhaps in the past we've even been closed off to because it requires us to teach ourselves new skills or for us to create familiarity for our families. Because oftentimes, when we ask youth ministry professionals to use digital tools, what we're really asking is for them to teach parents to use those digital tools so parents can support young people on one end of the iPad or the computer, whatever the connection is. When I think about the work we're doing in Incredible Days, I'm thinking about how advocacy work and lobbying and having conversations with important and powerful figures that have a capacity to shift this world and shape a more just society, how we're opening up new avenues to do that. And when I juxtapose that with, say, our classic mission trip where we're sleeping in a church basement in Kentucky, and every day we get up at 6 a.m., we go out and we build houses, we hammer nails all day long, and we come home and we sing Kumbaya and we all get 4 hours of sleep and then repeat. And that's a beautiful experience. It's really meaningful to millions of young people that do it. And it was powerful and shaping to me. That's why I do this work today. And that work needs to be connected to broader changes that allow us to ensure that everyone has access to housing. And volunteers hammering nails for the best of their abilities are not going to do that without bigger structural change. And so our ability to zoom in and talk to, and I mean that with the program zoom in and talk with our legislators and our elected officials, it's at an all-time high right now. We should be engaging elected officials to have conversations with them so they're hearing the voices of our young people, and our young people are getting the chance to articulate their faith and what that means in society today. I'm also thinking about how we're able to use digital tools to really get a vision for the world around us. So often we think that our kids can't really understand what X or Y situation is because we can't travel there, and we can't travel there right now because of COVID. But when you use Google Earth, when you use photo documentaries, when you use video that's being created by individual users all over the world and uploaded to YouTube, you get a chance to see and experience and witness the world through so many people's eyes in unprecedented ways. And so I think our youth ministry should be using those opportunities to do this work now because we have to, right? We have to adapt. COVID is forcing us to do this. So let's do it in ways that make our ministry more powerful and expand it and grow it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Absolutely. And Ryan, same question to you. What benefits and positives have you seen in all of this time?
Our first adventure, I won't even say obstacle, our first adventure was in the state of Connecticut. Residential camp in summer 2021 was not allowed to operate by the governor's orders. And so our first objective that we took on was really to say, what's the core of our ministry, which we knew and could articulate pretty easily, and say, could we do that in some other way that didn't mean physically gathering? And so we have a wonderful core of volunteers. Actually, Andrew is one of those core volunteers and has been on staff in the past. So we engaged both of those communities, our volunteers and our staff, and said, how are you willing to be a part of this community? And so we looked at what we call our Silver Lake loves: love God, love yourself, love your neighbor, and love creation, and centered 4 weeks of programming at home around those loves. That seems pretty basic. Whether you're physically gathered or you're distant, that love is at the core of our faith, or at least as we understand it. And so finding projects, programs, creative ways to engage the campers at home with each of those loves. And we had volunteers make videos, lead programming, had activities for them to do, everything from growing a pollinator garden at home, which weaves into that creation care, to having our beloved Chef Lynn making one of the favorite desserts on video, and folks could cook that at home at the same time that she was. So using those resources, as Andrew said, that technology that's already out there that we would never use in the summertime because we want our campers unplugged, we invited them to do a little online, but most of it, we actually had them going outside and actually doing programming at home with their family, maybe engaging their siblings or their parents or grandparents, or just doing it on their own was also a great possibility depending upon age. And then community is a huge part of what we do at camp. And so we really wrestled with, can we do community, and settled on, because we had some great volunteers again who are willing to be counselors in what we called cabin groups, which were 4 weeks of community. They gathered twice a week for an hour to build community among the 8 to 10 campers and the 2 counselors that were online with them. And by the end of the week, the great example of the way the community really formed, one of the campers was trying to come up with more Silver Lake loves so that the programming could go on longer, because if there were more than 4, we couldn't stop at the end of 4 weeks because we'd need to do all the Silver Lake loves. So really finding in new ways to creatively build community, which centered around those loves, but also just having counselors, volunteers, those professionals in whatever setting they work in their daily lives, being able to create a space for the campers to feel safe, to be welcomed, to be loved just as they are. And most of the time it was really goofy, but that's what they needed, because they needed a process to let that energy out, and a place to do that in a community where they could see others, laugh together with a common goal, if you will, but also know that they'd be received regardless of how silly they got or how vulnerable they got, because there were some really authentic conversations that happened as well about the struggle they were having. And then the last piece that I would add is thinking about how we shift our actual time together and do that in creative ways and do distance. So we've managed to shift to some adventure day programming where we're outside on the field games, low ropes, and challenge course, and doing that masked and distanced, and still being able to provide a program with the exact same goals and outcomes as we would during a regular session of camp, but to open that up to folks coming from different parts of the community. And then instead of having as many church retreats as we have, shifting to family retreats with a faith component, inviting them to live into that in a new way, to come and actually get to be together as a family at Silver Lake, which generally doesn't happen because we've got church groups here doing their retreat work.
I'd like to echo that and even build on it. If local church leaders are looking at their calendars and thinking to themselves, you know, mission work and outdoor ministry has to sit on the back burner right now, I would ask why. Right now, outdoor ministry is one of the few ways that, or was one of the safest ways that you can get together with your people. So if you're able to get outside and talk about the experience of creation and our outdoors and the work of protecting it and caring for it on a hike or on a outdoor sort of service day or something like that, I think that's a really powerful thing that our churches should be doing. And the same thing with mission work. Human needs are at an all-time high right now, being exacerbated by this pandemic. And so if we're not being cognizant of how our communities are changing and how our churches need to be responding to those, we're not doing our due diligence as ministers to our wider community.
And as Andrew talked about earlier, you can do mission work at your outdoor ministry settings too. And so that's another place to combine that extra safe and still do that work and community building together.
Yeah, thank you.